I do want to start with a question that somebody emailed me who actually live streams with us our first service and doesn't have another means of sending his questions, but this is from Stephen Pearson, Palouse, Washington, who asks, is hierarchy evil? Nature expresses itself at times through hierarchy, I'll put it that way. And nature is neutral. It's not evil and it's not good. Sometimes it presents itself in beautiful vistas, and sometimes it presents itself in devastating earthquakes. And that's how nature works. So for me, the real question really, when it comes to ethics, we have to take a couple steps back from the immediate question and ask ourselves what is ethical to begin with, what is right and wrong to begin with. As a liberal, as part of a liberal religion, my ethics go back to the Enlightenment period. As many of you have heard me say before, to what Kant called, Immanuel Kant, the Enlightenment philosopher, called the categorical imperative. That thing which can guide us in every circumstance, in every situation. And so he said you have to find that categorical imperative. And for him, the categorical imperative was the first version, the early version of the humanistic ethic, which is that nobody should ever be used as a means to somebody else's end, but should be considered an end within themselves. And that has changed or been reworded over the years. I like Erich Fromm's expression of the humanistic ethic, which is that everything we do in our societies, all of our rules, all of our organizations, our institutions, our societies, our businesses, our education, should be for the purpose of achieving two goals. The first is human welfare in general, and the second is individual unfolding. So when our systems are not doing that, when our systems are not working towards benefiting humanity in general and opening the way for individuals to fully unfold and express themselves, fully achieve their potential, those systems are failing. So we have to ask ourselves about hierarchy, and what are those at the top of the hierarchy doing? What are their ethics? So I don't think that one of the things that the Enlightenment brought about was what we call the rule of law, and it was the first time that we know of, at least in human history, where those at the top of the hierarchy were actually governed by rules themselves. They weren't just initiating rules based upon what they wanted for themselves, what would benefit themselves. It was expected that they would legislate in ways that would benefit human welfare and individual unfolding, individual freedom and potential, that sort of thing. So I think the first thing we have to ask in any system is that humanistic ethic present? Is that what our leadership are committed to? Is that what they're striving to achieve? Because the absence of that ethic is, for me, what evil is. As a person whose ethic is based on the humanistic ethic, any violation of the humanistic ethic is what I would call evil. So hierarchical systems that are not rooted in the humanistic ethic, the genuine goal and attempt to promote human welfare and individual unfolding, are evil. And those hierarchical systems would be. Preferably, we would have democratic systems that are creating the hierarchies, right? We create legislators, we create rulers, we create presidents, or appoint them anyway, as individuals who say, you must act now in the interest of society. If they don't do that, then I think anything is evil. And this is, to me, the fundamental problem with any system. Communism would work, socialism would work, capitalism would work, if the underlying ethic in all of those systems were the humanistic ethic. Where that is absent, all those systems fail. So the fundamental need for me is, again, this commitment to making whatever we do count towards promoting human welfare and individual unfolding. And by the way, I would just say one more thing, that by human welfare, I'm not speaking anthropocentrically, right? That is only for humans, because humans are not whole. We don't fully unfold unless we recognize our relationships and our connections and our dependence upon all that is and all of our relationships. So the earth, other creatures, are part of what it means to be a whole human being, to be a well human being, caring for those things, protecting those things, respecting those things.
Sense to me. So my question to you is, when you refer to liberal in our liberal religion, what is the difference, if any, of liberal versus progressive?
Okay. Good question. All right. Help me out. Who's the author of Don't Think Like an Elephant? Does anybody remember? Lakoff, George Lakoff. So again, after the Cold War ended, liberalism really became a bad word, because the right really turned that demonization or that need for an enemy onto its own neighbors, right? In other words, onto other Americans, and it was the liberals, and liberals increasingly became a bad word that even liberals began to shy away from, even to this day. I mean, as you heard, say in a sermon a few weeks ago, in the 1930s and 40s and even 50s, everybody wanted to be liberal, whether they were liberal or not. Right? That's how much it is. That's how much it has changed. But George Lakoff, actually, after he wrote "Don't Think Like an Elephant," got a lot of publicity. He was hired by the Democratic Party to help them reframe things, and he came up with the word progressive, precisely because liberal was seen as something negative. Okay, so in that sense, there's really not any difference. It's just another way to refer to ourselves, so without the baggage. I don't think progressive actually gets at it, though, because progressive tends to be a word that refers to always moving forward, and liberals certainly are progressive in the sense that they want to move forward. But liberalism is not just about moving forward. It moves forward intelligently, and it moves forward for a particular purpose. And it moves forward in a very certain way, a very specific way. That is a liberal way, by promoting freedom, reason, and tolerance, and practicing those as much as we're humanly able, because we have respect for the inherent worth and dignity of every person. You will find many progressives today who do not share those values. You will find many progressives today who want to move forward in the old authoritarian, intolerant ways that some liberal organizations, like the labor movement, was widely seen as, that was part of the liberal social agenda. And the labor movement, I mean, it's a beautiful thing, right? It was, hey, everybody should have the greatest, workers should have the greatest claim to their efforts. And they should, not be overworked, and they should have rights, and they should have protections. This was a movement in the early 20th century, and it manifested as the ideologies of socialism and communism. Okay. Now keep in mind, in those days, there were no communist countries, right? Communist China and communist Russia emerged out of that labor movement. It was and it was a remarkable thing, because we didn't have internet, we didn't have global communication systems, but that was a labor movement of the world. That was the International Workers of the World movement. So it was pretty incredible phenomenon. But unfortunately, in some countries, we saw that just as soon as the labor movement succeeded through a violent revolution, the leaders themselves became very authoritarian. Said, well, we definitely want to preserve human rights, but we're going to have to hold the reins pretty tightly here at the start, so have patience with us. And that has led to two of the most authoritarian regimes, governments, if you will, in American history. So liberals who want to Those who consider themselves liberal, or even those who just simply want to progress in the areas of social justice, of economic reform, of countering the mass funneling of wealth into the hands of just a few, we have to ask ourselves ethically, how do we move there? How do we move in that direction? And if it is just, let's just get there, doesn't matter how, it is not liberal. Liberals have a way about us. We move and walk in a certain way through the world. We make progress in a certain way. We wait and we have patience in a certain way, in a liberal way. So I'm not satisfied with the word progressive for that reason. One, it was an invention. It's become just as demonized by the far right as liberal ever was. I think we should reclaim liberalism. And the liberals would do ourselves a favor by first understanding what it means, because it's beautiful when you tell people, yeah, I believe in the worth and dignity, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and that in order to establish that and protect that, we have to create societies with freedom, reason, and tolerance. Okay, now let me go over those real quick. I don't have to go much over freedom, right? Because freedom means free from oppression, but it also means free to speak, free to think for ourselves. So reason is the one that a lot of people don't understand. You think, reason means I have to be able to be logical. Yeah, you should. You should be able to do some basic thinking and not get swayed by the bullshit that is on the internet, because that's what it is, much of it. You can't just read an article and then say, oh my God, it's written down, therefore it must be true. And that's where a lot of the thinking is coming from these days. So we have to understand basic inferences, understand, to look for reasons for the points that are being presented, and then being able to examine, does it make any sense? Is there empirical evidence? Is it coming from a valid source? All those sort of things. That's part of what reason is. But no, the reason was so important to the liberals. And by the way, to the Greeks 2,600 years ago who started it all, the Greek philosophers, who, as you've heard me say before, were the first to try to explain the world in natural rather than supernatural terms, was that they believed that they could. Okay, that's the difference. That's why we have to promote reason in society, because otherwise the authorities have to tell us what to think. If we can't think for ourselves, we need church authorities, we need government authorities, we need party authorities to tell us what we can say and what we must believe and what the truth is, and that the sun revolves around the earth. So reason is really a part of freedom. Reason says, you get to decide. You have the power to think. You don't need a church authority or a government authority or an expert authority to tell you what you must think and what you must say. You can do that. So reason's a big part of it. And then tolerance, of course, is, okay, even though I am the most logical person in the world, and therefore I must be right, I know a lot of you aren't, and I must live in the world with you. I must live peacefully with you. I'm kidding, of course, but you understand. We're going to disagree, no matter how rational we are, but that's okay. And until very recently, Unitarianism and Unitarian Universalism were communities that could get along with our differences. We didn't have this thing where people felt like, oh, I mean, this is the thing, right? We have an idea, a belief, and we moralize it. And it could be something really stupid, right? Like where to put the furniture. I mean, you will see people that will moralize where to put the furniture. Right? It becomes an ethical thing. It's funny, but we all do it. There's this instinct in us to be righteous, not only right, but righteous. And so we have an idea and we think, I'm righteous, and once I'm righteous, once my ideas are righteous, I have to wipe out anybody who has different ideas because those ideas are evil. And that's happened repeatedly throughout history. So I'm going to go with liberal. Thank you, Jennifer. So that's a tough one for me to explain in a few minutes. So I'll just real quickly say. So Judy's question is about covenanting. She grew up in a UU church that they would say their covenant every morning. She could still cite it, and that there's a controversy in the UUA now about covenanting. Yes, I would just quickly say that our religion has long been defined as a liberal religion, not a covenantal religion. We have made use of this term covenant from time to time. In the UUA bylaws, there's the covenant that says that we as members of this organization, will affirm what we call our 7 principles. There are churches that create covenants of right relationships, of how we expect to work with each other. What is happening now is the Unitarian Universalist Association is trying to redefine our religion as a covenantal religion, not a liberal religion, but a covenantal religion. And their use of the term covenant seems to be dogma, right? They won't say we're a dogmatic religion. They'll say we're a covenantal religion because it sounds so sweet, so euphemistic. By the way, it's the misappropriation of the Jewish religion. So just so you know, they're always on everybody else for misappropriating things. But bottom line is they want to create a new system in which congregations have to recovenant every year or two. That would require us to prove that we've been abiding by this covenant, whatever it is. We haven't made the covenant yet, but we're supposedly under it already. And then if not, we don't know what's going to happen. What if we don't satisfy the criterion? I don't know. But it's just to me it's just another use of euphemistic language to try to redefine us as an authoritarian dogmatic religion.